Hey! Hi! How you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show, and I'm sure you're all wondering, what's that title about, eh? Well, let me not waste your time, let's get straight into it. I'm sure all of you have heard by now about Ghost Recon Breakpoint, a fairly deeply flawed game, with very aggressive and anti-consumer monetization business practices, with almost every asset and feature within the game available for additional purchases via microtransactions. As you would expect from the gaming community, there was moral outrage and calls for boycott, understandable given the nature of the game. Now we come to popular games critic Jim Sterling. This is what he had to say about the publisher Ubisoft and the game Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Ubisoft is fucking disgusting. Let's not beat around the bush. Ubisoft is a disgusting little fucking monster of a company. When it comes to being a complete fucking wanton sellout of a corporation, Ubisoft's got all the others beat. Take for example Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is full on pay to win at this fucking stage. But no, if you've already spent $120 on this awful fucking game, I played the beta, it's trash, then don't expect Ubisoft to be done with your wallet. There is plenty more that they'd like to make off you.
Now, you would assume, with that damning condemnation of both the product and the company behind it, that Mr. Sterling would stand behind his words, his morals, his principles, and not provide financial aid to those he has declared to be immoral and unethical, right? I mean, it only stands to reason. And yet, in the very same video, Jim also said this at the end of it.
I'll probably do a video on it this coming weekend because fuck me spending $100 on it. I will feel terrible even if I do it for work. I'll buy the fucking shell price starter edition of it, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to talking about it.
Huh. Well, doesn't that just defang and declaw any moral and ethical arguments you're making against your opposition, now doesn't it? This is just like anti-gay activists who turned out to be gay, or male feminists who turned out to be women abusers. Total hypocrisy, complete contradiction, nullifying and discrediting all your arguments. Jim Sterling proclaims that Ubisoft is an immoral, unethical, anti-consumer company, and yet he proceeds to purchase their products and give them his money, therefore supporting them and their business practices. And yet for some reason, this is dismissed or even cheered on by his audience, by his fans, by the gaming community? Excuse me? Let's take a quick gander at the comment section of this video. The top comment reads, "Time savers. Here's a time saver. Don't waste your hard-earned money on this legal form of racketeering." Over 1,600 likes. Here's a life hack. Instead of buying the game and having to pay to not play it, just don't buy the game at all so you don't have to pay for not having to play it. I use this trick with all modern Ubisoft and EA games. I saved so much money already. Over 1,000 likes. Don't buy Ubisoft games. It's the ultimate time saver. Over 700 likes. As we can see from Jim Sterling's audience in the gaming community, there is an obvious call for boycott, to not support Ubisoft or the game. And then Jim Sterling proceeds to do the exact opposite of that, and he's supported for it. In his follow-up video to this, where he bought and played and reviewed the game while drunk, he proceeded to reiterate and quite frankly regurgitate what he already knew, what we already knew, that Ghost Recon Breakpoint is a poor product with greedy business practices. So he needed to purchase the game and continue to fund and support Ubisoft to relay information to us that he already knew, that we already knew. For what purpose, exactly? His audience already proudly proclaims that they don't purchase or play Ubisoft games, so if you were trying to get your audience to stay clear of the game, that was something they were already gonna do, so yeah, this isn't adding up now, is it? And if we take a look at the comment section, well, what do we have here? A comment pinned by Jim Sterling. Ouch, not the best wording or grammar, but let's see what we can make of this. Does hate open world looter shooters. Plays it anyway instead of covering a good indie gem that could legit use the exposure. Yep, makes sense. Huh, well, despite the errors, that's actually a pretty fair argument. Jim went into Ghost Recon Breakpoint with a set bias, with a set perspective and opinion. A strong negative one, in fact. I'm not criticizing that. Given the objective facts we know about Breakpoint, that's only fair. But again, I ask, why financially support a corporation you rally against? Why waste time on a video game you know will make you miserable? I thought Jim and his audience wanted to help improve the video games industry, making it better. And with Jim's influence and reach, he could easily help prop up and support pro-consumer products, indie video games, create a legitimate positive change within the industry. So I don't really see an issue with the point this user is making with their comment, but apparently Jim's audience and Jim himself takes great issue with it. No one watches videos on indie trash. Over 100 likes. Yeesh. Given Jim's audience, I'm surprised that got so many likes. Jim himself writes, "It actually does make sense though." Proceeds to not explain. Very helpful, Jim. Great argument. That's sarcasm. Keeps telling Jim to highlight indie games instead of making critical videos about AAA games. Doesn't watch the indie game videos he does make. Ooh, quite the straw man and allegations you're making there. Over 1,000 likes and even a heart from Jim. Oh boy. First off, do you have any evidence that this user keeps telling Jim to make highlights of indie games? Because I'm not seeing any evidence here, I'm just seeing you making hollow accusations and a straw man. Also, instead of making critical videos about AAA games, nowhere in that user's comment did he tell Jim to stop making critical videos about AAA games. That's just you straight up projecting. Very dishonest, very despicable. Doesn't watch the indie game videos he does make. Ooh, another baseless accusation with no evidence. More straw manning, more hyperbolic generalizations. Also, when Jim does make videos on indie games, they do get quite a few views. Do they not count? Why do the views on the indie video game videos have lesser significance than the ones on the being critical to AAA games? Also, I could have sworn, please correct me if I am mistaken, that Jim Sterling stated that he doesn't do this for views, that he doesn't care about the views on his videos? And if that is the case, very curious, if Jim doesn't care how many views he gets per video, why heart this comment? And why do you, your #1 fan, why do you care how many views Jim gets on a video? Very odd and contradictory mentalities I'm seeing on display here. Assuming he can't do a video on this game and do a video on an indie game before or after, or even simultaneously. Again, the original user's comment never made this assumption. You're projecting and making a straw man. People must only review what they enjoy. Again, projection, straw man, hollow, baseless accusation. The original user never made this implication. I can't help but notice a great deal of dishonesty and deflection in these comments. And then we come to the age-old tired argument. He literally said it himself. It's his job. Yes, Jim did indeed say this.
And I'm fucking sick of him. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I don't want to play him anymore. But because it's sort of my job to do it, I have to do it.
And this is a worthless excuse, for many reasons. First off, Mr. Sterling is his own boss. No one is forcing him to buy and play video games from the companies he despises and actively protests against. Despite my disagreements with him, look at Young Ye. Young is able to make videos being critical of AAA video games and their companies, while also actually backing up his morals and principles and not purchasing these video games from these companies that he protests against. You can argue that Young's quote-unquote job is to be critical of AAA games and companies. You can argue that Jim and Young have the same job, and yet Young doesn't compromise his integrity. He doesn't actively fund and support these AAA games and publishers. And yet Jim does, and it's okay? There are no holy commandments of being a games critic that are forcing Jim to completely contradict and undermine his messages by supporting these greedy corporations, so he's under no obligation. He's not gonna get fired. So what's the excuse now? What mental gymnastics are we going to pull to make this acceptable? And this here, ladies and gentlemen, is how Jim Sterling exposed the gaming community with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. There are obvious double standards and hypocrisy and biased favoritism going on here. The constant cries out for boycotting. The personal attacks against those who do not boycott and purchase these games. And yet here is a clear case of, oh, it's okay when I do it, it's okay when he does it, but you can't do it. So as long as I have a YouTube channel and upload videos talking about video games, that gives me a free pass to be a total hypocrite, not back up my morals and principles, and actively support those I condemn and have contempt for. Whew. This ain't a good look, Chief. And here's the thing, I wouldn't be making a big deal out of this if it wasn't for all the moral grandstanding. You see this repeated from the gaming community time and time again that these corporations, these AAA publishers are evil. Don't buy their games, boycott them, I hope they shut down, I hope they burn down. And yet here are your games critics, here are your advocates actively supporting them, giving them their money. Oh, but it's okay, they can be total hypocrites, and they can support these evil corporations we hate because we like their videos. I'm sensing a moral conflict here. Oh, wait though, I'm already sensing the incoming argument and contradiction that the masses of casual gamers who are ignorant to the news will just buy these games anyway, so what's the point? These games will be financial successes no matter what, so who cares if Jim Sterling buys and plays and reviews and criticizes Ghost Recon? Alright, so what's the point of calling for a boycott then? Why virtue signal about a boycott if it's going to amount to nothing? Why criticize these games and warn people not to buy them if it amounts to nothing? One moment it's gamers, rise up, together we can do anything and change the industry. The next moment it's, oh, we're powerless, there's nothing we can do. Might as well just go with the flow. Which mentality is it, gaming community? You can only pick one. I mean, what's the point of all this criticism if you're not gonna show any moral backbone and fortitude? Why proclaim all these corporations to be evil but then still engage with their products? It doesn't make sense. Now, I don't want this video to be all doom, gloom, controversy, and drama. You see, it's very easy to add a positive spin, a positive message to this kind of video. Just do what all these game critics are so apprehensive about doing, and recommend some genuinely good indie and middle market games that can have a positive effect on the video game industry. We're all on about making the video game industry better. Here's how you can do it by supporting these indie and middle market games I'm about to recommend to you. Neocab. Play as Lena, the last human driver for hire searching for her missing friend in the neon streets of Los Ojos. In this interactive story, you'll meet unique passengers during your nightly shifts, each with their own clues and secrets if you can get them to share. Maelstrom. Fast-paced naval battles in a grim fantasy world of leviathans, warships, and magic. Captain Orc, Dwarf, and human warships with tactical ship versus monster multiplayer. Upgrade ships and crew to become the most powerful warship to sail the abyssal ocean. The Wild 8. The Wild 8 is an intense survival action adventure set in a frozen wilderness of Alaska. Team up with friends in online co-op or go solo, explore the mysterious land, craft weapons, and fight to live another day. Reign of Reflections, Chapter 1. Reign of Reflections is an atmospheric dystopian adventure game with exploration and deep character interactions. Its turn-based strategic confrontations are uniquely centered around a motivation mechanic. Finally, here's Palmyra Orphanage. Paranormal first-person horror, which takes place in an abandoned orphanage. Walk through the corridors of your childhood, but do remember that you're not the only one here. And there we go! I just recommended to you a bunch of indie and middle market games that are genuinely good games and can have a positive influence on the video game industry if you buy, play, and support them. Was that so hard? Is this what all these game critics are so terrified of doing? Just taking a few minutes of their time, adding in a little bit extra to their videos to recommend some games that can do some genuine good? And if the whole complaint, the whole issue here is views, then just tie these good game indie middle market recommendations to the controversial drama pieces. At the beginning, the end, the middle of the video, wherever. If you're worried about the lazy cunts who are just coming over to your videos to virtue signal, or indulge in some confirmation bias, well, fuck 'em. Do what I'm doing here and trick 'em. I'm just using this faux outrage against Jim Sterling and Ghost Recon Breakpoint to help some good, honest developers in need who have made some genuinely good and entertaining games. As a matter of fact, let's keep going and recommend a few more. Daymare 1998. Daymare 1998 is a third-person survival horror game that recreates the mood of iconic titles from the 90s with a fresh storyline, an incident that turns a small town into a deadly zone, free characters to play with, and little time to find the truth before its mutated citizens abruptly end your mission. Children of Morta. Children of Morta is a story-driven action RPG game about an extraordinary family of heroes. Lead the Bergensons, with all their flaws and virtues, against the forthcoming corruption. Will you be able to sacrifice everything to save the ones you care for? Finally, we have Absolov. End of Gods. In this future Viking horror, you awake in a sanctuary of steel and concrete, built to research and exploit the worlds of Yggdrasil? Probably pronouncing that wrong, and to house an artifact buried in the earth eons ago. Unveil the secrets of mythology, the artifacts, and the realms of Yggdrasil in Absolov. End of Gods. So many good games to pick from and play. Why waste your time? Why waste your energy on trash like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, eh? Unless, of course, you enjoy feeling negative emotions, unless you enjoy cynicism, you gain pleasure from feeling anger or frustration or hatred. And hey, you know what? There's actually nothing wrong with that. Different strokes for different folks. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, you do you, but maybe, just maybe, be honest about it, eh? And maybe not try to hide behind the mask and the veil of pro-consumer activism. Just a thought. Anyways, that's been a video. I hope you liked the video. If you did indeed like the video in any way, shape, or form, please be sure to hit the like button. The like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved in the video. Hit the like button. Please comment in the comment section below. Love your comments again. You have comments, please comment. If you want to support this video, then please share it on social media, Twitter and Facebook. If you want to support me directly, well, there's always Patreon. Anyways, guys, that's been a video, and I'll see you all later.